Whether it's Kroger's Simple Truth Turkey or mac and cheese with Murray's English Cheddar or pie made with fresh Cosmic Crisp apples, there are many dishes we look forward to sharing during the holidays. And Kroger has all the fresh ingredients you need to turn today's holidays into tomorrow's memories. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Choose from a great selection of digital coupons and use them up to 5 times in one transaction. Check our app for details. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
When Shopify says you can sell anywhere, oh, they mean it. Woo, hold up. Just got a new sale. Order fulfilled and shipped. Inventory level's good. Whoa, Shopify doesn't mind if you're at sea level. Or on top of the world. You can run and grow your business anywhere. Climbing mountains is never easy, but at least Shopify gives me all the tools I need for my business to hit new peaks.
Whether you're selling carabiners or crop tops, start selling with Shopify today and join the platform simplifying commerce for millions of businesses worldwide. We've built the platform so you can keep climbing and grow your business to new heights.
With Shopify, you really can sell to anyone, from anywhere.
This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. Start selling online today. Sign up for a free trial at shopify.com/free22. 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 Internet connection required. Not available on mountaintops or seafloors.
Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson. Here on the magnificent Monday edition of The Yard, I'm back in Starkville. Got home about 3 a.m. this morning, drove the whole way from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I did not want to leave. That's probably not surprising. Didn't want to go. Good news is I'll pick her up Wednesday evening at the airport as we head to, vacation. Excited about that. Hope that you guys get out and have a chance to spend some time with those you love here in the coming days as we celebrate the end of this year and the beginning of next year. Today's show will be our year in review. And we'll come back. Wednesday's show will be recorded tomorrow. And that'll be our preview of the bowl game. And then there won't be a show on Friday. And I suspect there won't be one on Monday. So you're going to get 2 this week. And we may come back next week and do 3 next week. But you'll be short a show this week as your good friend and host takes some much-needed R&R. A lot of windshield time here as of late. I didn't plan to make that trip out to Albuquerque kind of last minute. I said, you know what, I got to get out here. I got to get away from Starkville for a little while and just kind of reset a little bit. And I did. Had a great time with the wife, and we celebrated Christmas Eve by Netflix and chilling. Ordered some Chinese takeout from Grubhub. That was our day. It was wonderful. One of the best days I've had in a long time. Didn't think about a lot of the stuff that's going on here as of late, and just kind of enjoyed being a dude for a while. Sometimes you got to do that. Sometimes you just got to be a dude. I enjoy just being a dude. Maybe you do too. So, big show today as we kind of look back over the year that was. Some good, some bad, some tragic. Wasn't a great year. It wasn't a great year. I had some good moments, but it wasn't a great year. We had some things to be proud of, some things not so proud of, and some things that'll probably mark us for forever. I'll be leaving tomorrow after recording the show. I'll head down to Orlando, and we'll rendezvous with the family down there. I'll pick up the bride Wednesday night. I'll enjoy, kind of a Wednesday afternoon and with the kids, take them out to eat, whatever, and then, we'll have our big family day, and then we'll go get on a boat and have a good time. So I will not be at the ball game unless something changes. You just never know with life. I have learned not to take anything for granted. But I'll be watching the bowl game and thinking of all of you. If I was there, I'd probably be on the sidelines walking up and down carrying a Jolly Roger flag in honor of Mike Leach. Good numbers last week. Thanks for everybody's support of the show. Another good week, wrapping up a record month with 5 days to go. So we'll have a couple more shows, and that's the amazing thing to me is we'll be short a show, but we'll still have a record month. So again, thank you guys for your support. Appreciate all your contributions. I have many people. It's just so crazy. I'm driving to New Mexico, and 2 different states. I had people at just chance meetings that I ran into, Bulldog fans, One in South Haven, I guess, to Hernando, and then another person in the state of Oklahoma. I stopped at a Love's truck stop, and a Bulldog just happened to be a Bulldog fan there that was traveling to go see his family. Bumped into me and said, "Hey, man, I'm listening to the show right now." I said, "Well, what are the chances of that?" So thank you, a stranger on the high plains. Appreciate everything. All the great support. Many of you have reached out to as of late. I've had a lot of messages here as of late. And I promise you, it takes me a while to get to them sometimes. Because even when I'm on my phone, I'm there for entertainment. Because like if you send a message, I feel obligated to respond. And so sometimes I'm just not in a position to do that. So I take my time with it. But a lot of messages of encouragement here as of late. And I tell you this. And I've talked philosophically a lot here lately. I'm going to try not to do a lot of that today on the show because, we're not going to pass around an offering plate and hum Just As I Am and have an offering call and things like that, an altar call, excuse me. But a lot of people that said, Steve, I've wanted to learn more about this and, I like some of your philosophies on life. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I'm thinking about, I told my wife this last night as I was driving back because I'm needy. 17 hours, you're trying to kill some time too. I'd think of things I'd call her. I think I'm ready to start working on the book. And a lot of people have asked me, Steve, what's next? I'm not quite ready to say. But, I just feel like maybe now's the time. Now, I will tell you this. It will not be a Leach biography. A lot of people, I probably had 100 or more people that have hit me up and say, Steve, you need to write a Leach book. I don't feel led to do that at this time. And I think maybe next year. I've talked to a couple people very close to Mike Leach. And says, hey, will you help me with this when I decide to do it? I said, it's probably going to be next year or maybe 2024. I think we all need a little time to heal. And many of you are like kind of caught in a moment, and say, hey, let's do it now. Well, I think it's best to give everybody a chance to try to, kind of put their feet in the ground a little bit and, kind of get their feet back under them as they kind of learn to deal with this loss. So the next book will not be a Leach biography. I don't want to do anything until we have a chance to talk to the family and kind of let them know what we're going to do. And I think, we just had the memorial last Tuesday. And I don't want to be that guy either that people say, hey, well, Steve's just trying to exploit the situation. That's just never the case. And so we'll give it some time. And obviously that's something that I'd like to do, but you never know what life's going to look like next year. I got some other projects, too, that are in the works, too. Some other things that I think you're going to be excited about once I can talk about them. Some things in music and some things in books and some other things. So we'll share that with you when we can. But because of that I've got so many things out there right now that I've kind of got I got a spoon in a pot right now of a lot of different things. I want to commit to a lot of things and put things out there before they're ready. So once they're ready, we'll let you know. And I got one project once I get back from the Bahamas that we're going to go, we're going to get to work on that. And then I got a pretty big conference call in January, another conference call in relation to a project we've talked about a little bit here. I remember I was out in New Mexico when I got the message about the previous conference call. And so, again, I hate to be cryptic, but once I can talk about that stuff, we will. So thanks again for your support. I think 2023 is going to be a really big year for me and my family and for our business. There's a lot that's going on. There's a lot that I'm working on both personally and professionally. And I believe 2023 is going to be a great year. 2022 hadn't been a great year, much like Mississippi State. It's like, it's had some high moments, but you look back in its totality and you think, it's kind of tough. It's kind of a tough year. And the thing that I've learned about that, and I share this with my wife all the time, when you get out of balance a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Like you focus too much on career-minded things, you start feeling the drain elsewhere. And then when you focus too much on the personal side, not on the professional side, you kind of get the same feelings. You get these feelings of guilt that I should be doing more, right? And so it's tough to maintain a balance. And I think one of the best lessons I've ever learned in life, I took a Franklin Covey planning class one time called What Matters Most, kind of focusing on what matters most. But you got to have goals both professionally and personally. You have to do them both. You can't lead an accidental life and then get out of balance. And so that's just my personal philosophy on that. So we may do some things along those lines as we get a little bit closer. I hadn't done a recovery podcast in a long time. I need to get back to doing that. So that's one of the things I look to do too. I've had many people that have reached out. That's not a lucrative proposition for me. I do that to help other people. You may not know this, but back on December 10th, I surpassed 31 years of sobriety. And year 31, one of the most difficult years of sobriety I've ever had. And you would think, hey, once you get 3 decades in, you're just going to cruise. The wolf is always at the door, right? I mean, that's just how it is. There's always something. There's always something that comes up that tries to trip you up. And sometimes it's if you have a good spiritual foundation and a good connection with your higher power, you can navigate through that. But of course, when you get out of balance, sometimes you don't have that. And so I think it's important to always view life through spiritual principles. Kind of a personal philosophy of mine. Let's take some time now to thank our friends at Bulldog Burger Company, longtime sponsors of this show. I love Bulldog Burger Company. You will too if you don't already. It is a love affair that is very, very, very beneficial. A lot of places you go, you don't get as much for your money. That's just not the case at Bulldog Burger Company. They're giving you the same generous portions as always. They haven't raised the price. A lot of people out there have raised their prices and tacked on a convenience fee or an overcharge fee, or a we don't like you fee, or we're bad server fee. There's always that. Not at Bulldog Burger Company. Nope. A lot of integrity in pricing there. That's one of the things I love about those folks that run the Eat With Us group. One of the reasons they have lasted as long as they have in our area is integrity. They're people of integrity. They're going to give you more than you pay for. Those portions are absolutely fantastic. I never leave one of those restaurants hungry. I never leave there feeling like I didn't get a good value for my dollar. A lot of people are competing for your dining dollar, but nobody does it better than Bulldog Burger Company. Go by and check them out today. 3 great locations to serve you. University Drive in Stark Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, Lake Harbor Drive in the Ridge and Flowwood area. Get the spring rolls as your appetizer. You'll be glad you did. Get that great restaurant quality hamburger. If you want to eat a little light today, and I say light, okay, get that BLT salad, but the portion itself is very substantial. You may even want to bring some of it home. Serve it as a side with supper, right? I like it grilled. You may like it fried. And get that chocolate shake to go. I think that's a movement we can all get behind, is dessert to go. I love that Shipweed's bread pudding, too. Be sure and check that out next time you're in town. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet, M-E-A-T. All right, let's take a quick look back. Again, I tell you, it wasn't a great year. And it's easy when you're in the throes of it all. You say, well, it wasn't so bad. Men's and women's basketball was not great. And, we had to make 2 coaching changes. Let's start on the men's side of things. We all knew last year, everybody that was objective about Mississippi State men's basketball, everybody knew that Ben Howland was coaching for his job. That was not a surprise to anybody. It may have upset some people. There were a lot of people that were very much Ben Howland apologists. There were some other people, too, that, Ben can do no right with them. Again, I thought last year we had a chance to do some really good things. We just didn't capitalize on it. I mean, you start out the year on a 4-game winning streak, and really none of those games were truly competitive. It wasn't great competition, but you get off to a 4-0 start, and then we go to the Bahamas and get blasted by Louisville. We thought, here we go. We beat Richmond in overtime. You think, okay, we're all right. Beat Lamar. We lose to Minnesota by 5 in Starkville. And we lost to Colorado State in the Basketball Hall of Fame Classic out in Fort Worth, Texas. We didn't think that was a bad loss. It was a loss nonetheless, though. And it was our 3rd of the year and our 3rd in 5 games. And it was one of those things you start thinking, you know what? Maybe this isn't going to go the way we hope it does. We bounce back and we blow out Georgia State. We beat Furman by 3. Still remember that game. We go down to Jackson in the Coliseum. We blast Winthrop. And so we end non-conference play with a decent record, but not a great record. We're 9-3, 2 games behind what we were this year. And then we beat Arkansas. And granted, Arkansas was short, but we beat them 81-68. We start thinking, okay, we're okay. We have righted the ship here. Tolu had been banged up a little bit last year. We'd had some injuries early on. But we beat Arkansas. And yes, they were short, but a win's a win. The very next game, and again, this is kind of the hallmark of the Ben Howland era, is just when we sucked everybody in, we would do something to disappoint them. And that happened to be a 10-point loss at Ole Miss, a bad Ole Miss team. We bounced back and beat Georgia, a bad Georgia team. So we're 2-1 in the conference, and then we find a way to beat Alabama in Starkville, who was ranked 24th at the time. So now all of a sudden you got a 3-1 start to the SEC schedule. We go to Gainesville, they're short, and we still lose by 8. Kind of redeem ourselves that weekend. We beat Ole Miss 78-60. We go to Kentucky, forced them into overtime, and again, a terrible last possession in that game. We had 2 chances to win that game, one at the end of regulation and then one in overtime. And then we blow it and then end up having a foul. But, Kentucky, that's a game we should have won. They were number 12 in the country at the time. That would have been the biggest win of the era for Ben Howland. You lose that game, and then you get absolutely manhandled in the Big 12 SEC Challenge by Texas Tech. They were 13th at the time, and I tell you, they beat us 76-50. It felt worse because they beat us up. It wasn't just about the scoreboard. All of a sudden, we realized we were not as good a basketball team as we had hoped to be. So again, another rough stretch there. You get off to the 3-1 start in the league, and then you lose 3 of 4. Granted, Texas Tech's not in the league, but I think we realized then they were a tournament team, and we weren't. We come back and beat South Carolina. We go to Fayetteville. We lose that game by 8. And again, that's a game, we had our chances. Fell apart late. Again, the 4-minute malaise under Howland. We lose to Tennessee. No surprise there, 72-63. We go to Baton Rouge and face a vulnerable LSU team. We lose by 4, which runs the losing streak to 3. We go to Tuscaloosa and lose by 5. They were a ranked opponent again. So 4 SEC losses in a row. And at this point, I think we all realized this wasn't going to work out. Back-to-back wins over Missouri kind of gets us back in the mix of things and gives us a decent chance to think, okay, we can string some things together. We're now 16-11 and 7-7 in the league. And you just feel like, if we can find a way to get a winning record in the league, we got a chance. We go on the road and lose to South Carolina by 10. Come back home, beat Vanderbilt by 5. We lose at Auburn, 81-68. That's an overtime game, too. We went and played pretty well. And give Ben Howland some credit. Honestly, give Ben some credit. When we had these big ball games, we would go play well. We would go compete hard. But against teams like South Carolina, we just couldn't get it done. So then you go on the road, and this Texas A&M team was not good. Not good at all. And we end up with a losing record. They beat us. They go 9-9. We go 17-14 in the regular season and 8-10 in the SEC. And at this point, everybody knew we're making a coaching change. And there were a few holdouts. There were a few. We found a way to beat South Carolina out in Tampa. And then we get blasted by Tennessee, 72-59. We make the NIT. Everybody knew that wasn't enough. We'd already begun renovations on the Humphrey Coliseum, and people were critical of the administration for that. Let me tell you this. It was absolutely the right decision. We owed Ben Howland nothing. People said, but Steve, those players earned the opportunity to host. Guys, we're not going to make any decisions based on a dadgum NIT game. Honestly, think about that. We're going to delay renovations of the Humphrey Coliseum for an NIT game? Give me a break. Give me a break. Well, of course, we lose 70-57. That ends the season and the Ben Howland era. I was glad that it was over. Kind of a merciful end. Ben Howland's final season at State, 18-16, 8-10 in the league, not counting the SEC tournament. But not a good year. Barely finished the year with a winning record. And some inexplicable losses to go along with some hard fought, the tough game at Arkansas, tough game at Auburn, tough game at Kentucky. And those were quality teams. There's no doubt about it. We had the potential. But for some reason, once we got in the 4-minute mark, it didn't matter what the score was. We were in trouble. So we end the year, we make a coaching change. And, a lot of people felt like, hey, well, Cohen will blow the hire. Well, they absolutely didn't. We hired Chris Jans. You look at what we have today, I think we all feel pretty excited about it.
Watch every heart-stopping, post-pounding moment in sports live with Sling TV, starting at $40 a month. Stream more sports and save more money. It's a winning formula. Sling has all the big games on the biggest channels. ESPN, SEC Network, ACC Network, Big Ten Network, NBA TV, and TNT, all for the best price. Live football, hockey, racing, and basketball. It's all happening, and you've got the most versatile ticket in town. The best part? Sling costs almost half as much as other live TV providers, so you can watch more and pay less. Streaming your favorite sports is easy. Sign up and start watching in 5 minutes. Stream live on any device so you never miss a minute. And customize your channel lineup to get the coverage you need, all with no long-term contract required. Check out Sling.com for special offers. Sling, the live TV you love for a price you'll love. Try us today.
This podcast is brought to you by Udemy, a leading destination for learning professional skills. Need to train your employees with the latest tech and business skills? Try Udemy, an integrated learning solution trusted by companies like AT&T, NASDAQ, and Glassdoor. With thousands of business learners from around the world, the Udemy 2023 Workplace Learning Trends Report reveals the top skills in demand today. Visit business.udemy.com/trends and get the report now.
Let's take a quick look on the women's side of things. And listen, give Doug Novak a lot of credit. Give those ladies a lot of credit. There was not a lot to work with due to injuries last year. And we still put together a great, memorable season. Didn't end the way we wanted it to. We ran out of juice. But a lot of moments we can be proud of. Of course, the season begins with the sudden resignation of Nikki McRae-Penson. Wish her the best as she tries to recover her health. And again, Doug Novak put in an impossible situation and still managed to put a winning record together. We open up with a 91-62 win over Alabama State. We beat South Dakota State. It's a good women's program, 76-71. That's in Starkville. We blast Alcorn State, beat Bethune-Cookman. Go down to the Dayton Beach Invitational. We win the first game against Dayton. We get shelled by Michigan, 64-48. But you felt like, you know what, hey, all things considered, we're in pretty good shape here. 5-1. Michigan was undefeated at the time. We double up McNeese State. We lose to Oklahoma, 94-63. And I think at that point, people weren't upset. I think it's just kind of like, after all the adversity we faced this year, we're just kind of happy to be out there and compete. We bounced back and we went on the road at UT Martin, 54-37. While we're playing at UT Martin is beyond me. And then we lose to Troy at our place, 73-66. Bounce back and beat Jackson State, beat South Carolina State. You close out the non-conference and you begin to think, okay, at least we're going to compete. We were 9-3 at the end of non-conference play. And, of course, we open up with South Carolina and actually played it pretty well for a while. They pulled away late, 80-68 is the final. We beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa that Thursday to win by 3. Then we beat Vanderbilt, and all of a sudden you're 2-1. You have to travel to Ole Miss, and we have beaten them forever and a day. This was their Super Bowl, and they made it stand up. They win 86-71. We then lose to Georgia in Starkville, a game that I think most people felt we should have won. Go on the road, lose to Arkansas by 20. Beat Mizzou 77-62. Beat A&M by 20. Go beat the Fighting Johnny Harrises of Auburn, Alabama, 70-65 at their place. We lose at our place to Florida, 73-64. And probably the highlight of the season, we get Ole Miss and really dominated them in the second half of this game and win 70-59 to at least earn a split. And they really wanted that game. And our ladies and our crowd did a phenomenal job. We go on the road and lose to Kentucky. And at this point, everybody's expecting us to make the tournament. Well, we close out the year. We don't win another game. The last win, of course, is against Ole Miss. And that is not an indictment on Doug Novak, the staff, or our players. We just simply ran out of juice. We just didn't have anything left. We lose to Kentucky, lose to LSU, lose at Missouri, lose at Tennessee, lose to Arkansas, get into the SEC tournament, and we get blasted by Kentucky. Again, so we end the year 15-14, 6-10 in the conference, and of course lose the last 6. And there were times we were playing with 6 players. I mean, just really kind of an unfair situation. And a lot of people wanted Doug Novak to get the job. And I'll share with you this, kind of like I said back then. It shouldn't have been Doug. Doug was a coach on the men's side from the D3 side, and it's not in any way an indictment on his work last year. We needed somebody familiar with the women's side of things that had recruiting relationships. It was going to be able to put a staff together. And you go out and hire Sam Purcell, considered by many to be the top recruiter in the country. And if you look at the job that he's done recruiting in the time that he's been here, I think that reputation is well earned. But again, a debt of gratitude to Doug Novak and everybody involved, women's basketball last year, for doing the best they could under some very difficult circumstances. While that team didn't achieve an awful lot, the fact that they had a winning record with half a team and a makeshift coaching staff says a lot about the fortitude and character of those people. All right, let's look at baseball. It's one of those things, too. Baseball is such a source of pride for us. We're coming out looking to defend our NAFL championship. It didn't go well. And again, it just seemed like we were snake bitten last year. Like every time we turned around, something negative was happening. We open up the year losing 2 of 3 in Starkville, Long Beach State, and everybody's telling us Long Beach State is going to be absolute world beaters. They go from unranked to like ranked in the top 15, kind of a prisoner of the moment type response by your pollsters. You come back, you beat UAPB, and then you take 2 of 3 from Northern Kentucky. And the fact that we lost the game, of course, we lost the Landon Sims game. We started the year 0-2. Lose the Landon Sims game on Friday to Northern Kentucky, and you bounce back and win the next 2. But it's just an RPI killer. It is. You beat Grambling. You get shelled by Southern Miss and Pearl. That was an abysmal night out in Pearl. We go down to Tulane, and it's like our whole season changed. And listen, it wasn't going great already. But that Tulane weekend is one that will live in infamy. We had the big bounce back on Friday, and we destroy these guys 19-2, and you think, okay, we're going to right the ship now. Well, in the middle of all this, you lose Landon Sims. Then you lose Stone Simmons. Stone Simmons is healthy and pitches that 9th inning on that Saturday game. You win the series, but instead they come back to win 11-10 in 10 innings, and they beat us on Sunday 5-4. So we lose the series down there, but more importantly, we lost our Friday night starter and one of our best relievers all in one weekend. We bounced back and split with Texas Tech down in Biloxi. Texas Tech probably don't want to play us in baseball. We always seem to have a little bit of success against them. We get Princeton the next weekend. We sweep those guys. But again, I think everybody realized we're going to have to string this thing together. I mean, this pitching staff thing is going to be very, very dicey, and it was. Your Casey Hunt's a guy that got hurt early in the year and missed some time. We didn't have a lot of pitching depth, and then we lose some of the more productive guys we have before we even get into SEC play. You bounce Binghamton 13-5. We go to Athens, Georgia. My first time covering baseball at Athens, and we got absolutely destroyed. Game 1, 11-0. Parker Stinnett just didn't have it this weekend either. Georgia. They come back and beat us at Saturday game, 12-11. I remember walking out of the dugout and heard a few F-bombs dropped. I felt the same way. Just didn't say it. We bounced back on Sunday and we salvaged the game 20-3. And listen, make no mistake, this is a good Georgia team. Wasn't a great Georgia team. It's a good Georgia team. But a series we should have taken. We should have won that Saturday game. That's when we realized our bullpen was in trouble. Midweek game, you beat Southern, and we get Alabama 7-6 in 10 innings on Friday. That's the big R.J. Yeager walk-off to win that game. Saturday, we win 8-7, and then we lose 6-2 on Sunday. So you take the series, and all of a sudden you're 3-3 in the league, and you think, okay, we've already got a road trip behind us, and this is an improving Alabama team. Maybe we're okay. You beat Memphis in the midweek, and we go to Arkansas, and we look terrible Friday and Saturday. We gutted it out on Sunday, and you get a win in extra innings. Luke Hancock with a big base knock late to give us a lead there. I remember the players saying, let's just get on the bus and get out of here. The fact that we could get a win after back-to-back sweeps up there, Arkansas has had our number here as of late. So the fact that we got one up there meant a lot to us. But we're Mississippi State. We should never, ever dread taking a road trip anywhere in this league. UT Martin, we get those guys in 7 innings, and then we get LSU up here. LSU sweeps us, and at this point, we realize that we're chasing the season. Wasn't a great LSU team either. You beat UAB in 10. You win the series against Auburn 2 out of 3. We should have swept that thing. Had we swept it, it would have given us a little more breathing room, but we get 2 out of 3 from Auburn. And this is an Auburn team, too, was kind of bowing through injuries. We get Jackson State. And then we take 2 of 3 in Oxford against Ole Miss. And at this point, I think we all figured, okay, we've got it figured out now. We just got to hold serve and win the games we're supposed to win. We lose the Governor's game on Tuesday for the first time in forever, 5-2 ball game, and that was the game Brad Cumbus, I think, hit 3 shots to the wall and just couldn't quite poke him out of there. But, the big series win meant everything. Cumbus had a big weekend against Ole Miss. But again, at this point, you felt like, okay, we got a shot here. Probably going to be a road regional team, but we're 24-18 at that point, a game ahead of Ole Miss, and probably feeling pretty good about life with the SEC standings. We had that Missouri series coming up, and for the second consecutive year, Missouri absolutely tanks our SEC standings. We win that first game 13-4, and then at Saturday, it's like we absolutely could not get anybody out. It was like 50-mile-an-hour winds blowing out to right. They get us 19-8, no matter who we threw out there. We just couldn't get anybody out. Hunter Hines hit an absolute shot that day. Missouri, we blow it. Casey Hunt has a chance to close that thing out. I think it was Josh Day hit the big home run. So they take the series, and at that point, we felt like, you know what, this thing is done. It's done. It's just a matter of us playing out the string. We get swept by Florida the next weekend. We go to Samford, one of the most miserable nights of my college baseball writing career. Give up 2 grand slams in the game and lose 8-6 to Samford. And it was a Samford team that had lost many of its best players from the year before. We go down to Texas A&M. We get swept. The games are competitive for the most part. We run out of pitching on Sunday, but again, we're done. North Alabama, we get those guys 14-4, and then we get absolutely roasted by Tennessee. Give up 27 runs in that Thursday game, the school record. Bounce back, lose 4-3 on Friday. Should have won the game, and then lose 10-5. We don't make it to Hoover. We don't make the NCAA tournament, and there was misery around this program, and there still is until we get back on the field and get back into the NCAA tournament. Those feelings are going to linger. Not to say that anybody was on the hot seat, nor should they have been, but it was an abysmal season, and I can promise you nobody feels that more than Coach Chris Lemonis does. We've talked about it extensively. Chris is a competitor. Chris is a winner. That stuff does not sit well with your baseball coach. All right, flip it over to softball real quick. Had a historic, run this year. Arguably the greatest season in the history of Bulldog softball. Thanks to Coach Ricketts and Josh and Tyler. Did a great job. We finished the year 37-27, 10-14 in the conference, the best conference in the country. But you open up, kind of an auspicious start there. We start 1-3 at the Mark Campbell Invitational, and people were thinking, okay, well, this is what's going to happen. Nah, we bounce back, take 2 from Alabama State. The Bulldog Kickoff Classic, we split that. We lose 2 out of 5. We lost 3 of 5. We go 2-3 in our own tournament. Georgia Tech got us once. Central Arkansas got us. Southern Illinois got us. We go to the Snowman Tournament. That's the Alex Wilcox Memorial Tournament here in Starkville. We take 4 or 5 games. Are thinking, okay, maybe we're turning this thing around. We got conference play coming up, but the next little stretch here, we take 4 or 5 with the Bulldog Invitational with Furman, Alcorn State, Jacksonville State. You get North Alabama, and so you finish up non-conference play. Good enough shape, I guess. Good enough shape, not great. Pretty good shape. 15-8, I guess. Northern Alabama was our last non-conference game. They were 18-5. We beat them. But 15-8, heading into SEC play. You go to Florida, one of the top teams in the country, and you get 1. And you're thrilled to get that 1 because everybody expected us to get swept. The season turned around the next weekend. We sweep Ole Miss in 3, and they're very much a softball school. We take those 3. The last one, of course, a 6-0 shelling on Sunday. We take down Memphis, and then we get Samford in the midweek and Middle Tennessee State. We off for Alex weekend. We go to Tennessee. We take 1 on the road and could have gotten swept, I guess, but we kind of got hot against Tennessee there on the Saturday game. You lose to Southern Miss, and you bounce back and take 2 of 3 from Missouri. Alabama, a machine. We had a chance to get 2 games, though. We lose 2-1 and 7-6. End up being swept in that series. You get UL Monroe, you get UT Martin again. We win 1 of 3 against Auburn. Probably felt like we should have gotten the series. We don't. Take down Southern Miss. We go to Kentucky. We win 1 out there. Then we get LSU. We get 1 against them. And so you round up the regular season. RPI was good. And Mississippi State is now 32-23 and 10-14 in the conference. And you feel like, okay, that's enough to get us in the tournament. We beat LSU again in the SEC tournament. So you end up, winning, splitting with LSU. We lose to Tennessee 1-0 in 13 innings, if you may recall. That was a game, too. Had you won that one, you might even had an even bigger situation. So we head down to the Florida State Regional, and we dropped the first game of South Florida, and everybody said, well, this is usually how it goes for us. We make the tournament, but we can't make any noise. So we lose to the Bulls. We bounce back to beat Howard. Then we beat South Florida 6-0. And then we beat host Florida State. We had to beat them twice. We beat them 5-0. And then at that point, people were thinking, okay, well, we've got a chance here. And so all of a sudden, everybody's turning on the SEC network and everybody's watching the game. And State wins the regional 4-3. You celebrate down in Tallahassee. You're going to host a super regional because of upsets around the country. We host Arizona. This became the Brittany Thackeray series. And we lose the Friday game 3-2 in extra innings. We had our chances. Absolutely had our chances. State with a 2-1 lead after 6 innings of play. They tie it in the 7th to force the extra frame, and then they win. And then the final game of the series was a 7-1 loss, and so Arizona then advances to the Women's College World Series, and we don't. But we're 2 wins away. But again, arguably the greatest season in the history of Bulldog softball. So again, you look back in hindsight, and maybe softball is the biggest positive of those sports. Of the spring semester, softball gave us the most to cheer about. So thank you to Coach Ricketts and everybody involved with Bulldog softball. All right, time for today's Top 10 list. As always, brought to you by closewithblair.com. That's C-L-O-S-E with Blair, B-L-A-I-R.com. Be sure and check him out. Here's the deal, guys. Many of you have thought about owning a home, and perhaps financing has been a real challenge for you. Maybe the issue is not necessarily you. Maybe it's you didn't have the right advocate working with underwriting. Maybe you didn't have an experienced loan officer that knew how to structure your loan to get you approved. That may be the case. So go with a professional like Blair Chandler. 21 years of experience in the industry, top 1% close ratio in the country, back-to-back years. And here's the deal, too. If Blair can't get you taken care of, he can put you on a plan to make you credit worthy next time. Known the guy a long time. We've had some Boneyard listeners that have messaged me with their testimonials and said, hey, Steve, listen, I didn't know much about Blair. Gave him a chance. We've been turned down elsewhere. He got us approved. So maybe it's time that you give Blair a chance to work for you. Give him a call or text today at 601-500-2344. Again, 601-500-2344. And listen, he works for Fairway Mortgage. You can do your own research. They're a reputable lender. They're not some subprime loan origination places here today and gone tomorrow. I'd encourage you to follow Blair on Instagram, too. He has some helpful mortgage tips there. A lot of people don't even think about a mortgage until you have to get one, and you don't know who to call. It's a very daunting task. So stick with a winner like Blair Chandler. And if you mentioned to Blair you heard about him on the Boneyard, he's going to pay for your appraisal. It's about a $500 value. Closewithblair.com. All right, since this is the year in review show, and I'm a rock guy, I'm going to give you the top 10 rock songs of 2022. Now, these are going to be modern rock songs. Okay, I could throw Skid Row in here because Skid Row's new album is amazing. Gwen Dryk's new album, amazing. Love the new Lillian Axe album. I think Golden Dragon is probably my favorite song on that album. A lot of great stuff came out this year. But I wanted to go with the new rock, too. I'm going to give you guys my top 10 modern rock songs released in 2022. You may disagree, and that's okay. That's okay. You get your own show. You have your own list. But these are my top 10. Number 10, I love this band. I saw them at Rocklahoma. Thanks to my buddy Mark here a couple years ago. It's Asking Alexandria. The song is Never Gonna Learn. I love Asking Alexandria. This new EP they put out is phenomenal. To quote Ben Howland, if you liked at any point, liked Asking Alexandra, you'll love the new one. A little more teeth in it, a little more grit. I love it a lot. Number 9, the former singer of the great band Bad Wolves. I like Tommy. Tommy is an advocate for recovery. He's in recovery himself. He's lived a very tragic life. Now he works to help others. He was basically run out of Bad Wolves because of his politics, because he was a little more conservative than the rest of the band, and he took his philosophical and political beliefs on social media. There was a lot of backlash against the band, and that's why they fired him. So Tommy went solo, called himself the Lone Wolf. The number 9 song on your countdown today is The War You Wanted from Tommy Vex, the Lone Wolf. Number 8, a band that I absolutely love. I've gotten into them the last few years. I think the new album, they've kind of stacked 3 good albums in a row. And a lot of people are really digging the new stuff. I encourage you to check them out. It's a band called Memphis May Fire. And we're going to go with Make Believe. A lot of people have that in their top 10 this end of the year. Is one of the top 10 songs in rock this year. Number 7, and I know Sirius XM Octane had this number 1. It's a little bit, maybe not true to the rock. I like these guys a lot, but I couldn't have them ahead of some of the bands that are ranked ahead of them on my list, just because I think that they're a bit new metal at times. But it's Falling in Reverse, and the song is Voices in My Head. My favorite song from them is Popular Monster. I love it. I love the energy in it without a doubt. But Falling in Reverse out there, I may get to see them in February when I go back out to Mexico. I'm not sure yet. Hadn't told the wife yet that I'm planning that. But Voices in My Head, a great song. Number 6, one of my favorite bands. I don't like the Planet Zero album as much as some other people do. And I'm a Shinedown guy, right? I think Planet Zero has some high marks on it, but it has some other songs too that kind of come off as filler. I thought Attention Attention was probably the best album they've done since The Sound of Madness. I think this is a little bit of a step back, but the highlight of the album for me is not the title track. It is a beautiful song written by Eric Bass to his wife, and he was going through some mental health stuff. He's a guy that battles manic depression. And so he wrote this beautiful song, an amazing tribute to his wife. It's called Daylight. You always make sure I get to see the daylight. It's like when I'm going through all the difficult times in life, and there's this, great line in the song. It says, "It's amazing what the hard times can reveal. Who shows up, who checks out, and who's for real." I think that's how it goes. But that is true. You find out who really cares for you when you need something. Everybody's there for you until you need something. That's how life works. And, I talk about this regularly. I don't sponsor people anymore, but I am sometimes kind of an assistant sponsor to people. And I've shared this on the show recently. I hope your good friends are good people. There are a lot of people that are your good friends that are just kind of co-conspirators in your own demise. Right? They just kind of go along with like they're so friend poor. They'll go along with whatever just to keep you to be their friend. And there are some people that just need misery loves company, right? So they want you to be they want you to be like them. And they're trying to find some joy in their own miserable life. So they encourage you to make bad decisions. I dealt with that too. You'd be amazed, man. When I went to rehab, you know how many of my friends called me when I was in rehab? Zero. And then a bunch of people after that said I was a narc because I went to rehab. I'd been arrested, and they were all worried about getting in trouble. I had one friend tell me, "Oh, you're not an alcoholic and a drug addict. You drink like and use like we do." They're not friends. We throw that label around. It's like everybody wants to be besties and BFF and all that kind of stuff. You better be friends with people that have character. If not, they're going to pull you down. I don't care what kind of person you are. You say, "Well, I'm strong." No, you're a product of the company you keep. All right, number 5, another band. Love these guys. They are based out of San Antonio, but have some connections to Baton Rouge and New Orleans. Great band called Nothing More. Love those guys a lot. We've been on a top 10 list for them. It takes them forever to produce new material, which drives me crazy. It seems like it's 3 and 4 years between albums. But it's a great track called Tired of Winning. I'll never be tired of winning, Johnny. Never. But Nothing More's Tired of Winning, number 5 on the list. Number 4, a band that I love, and if you get a chance, they had an acoustic EP they released last year. It's well worth your time. Vocalist, amazing. It's a band called Bad Omens. They're a great band. And I love this new stuff they've done, and I think that they have matured to the point now that they're ready to take the next step as a band. They used to just kind of be that band. It was like the opening act, and they had long hair, and they had a good guitar player and a good singer. The songwriting's kind of caught up to their talent now. It's a song called Just Pretend. Number 4, Bad Omens, Just Pretend. Number 3, one of my favorite bands of this new generation. My wife and I were talking about this recently. I said, man, I think I've seen just about everybody I want to see. I said, who are some bands we haven't seen you want to see? She goes, I want to see Bring Me the Horizon. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, that is an absolute win. We got to go see those guys. They put out some amazing music during the quarantine. And their newest one is a song called Strangers. Great. Ali is great. The music is great. It's got that hard industrial punch to it. My wife, I'm more of a traditionalist. Let's plug it and play, right? My wife likes kind of this overproduced stuff. She likes the big, heavier sound. But Bring Me the Horizon, Strangers, number 3. Number 2, I don't know if anybody had a bigger 2022 than Jelly Roll. And I've had so many of you that have hit me up and said, Steve, you need to do a Jelly Roll top 10. I'm just not quite ready to do it. We may. But the guy went out with Shinedown is kind of a virtual unknown. Like some people kind of knew one or two of his songs. They go out with Shinedown, and Shinedown was selling out arenas all over the country, not clubs, not convention halls, but major arenas. And Jelly Roll went out with him, and he emerged from that tour as a headliner himself. Done some things with Shooter Jennings. Everybody loves this guy. And he's got some elements of country, got some elements of rap, got some elements of rock. It's kind of a hodgepodge of musical symphony here. But we went with the great track, Dead Man Walking, number 2 on your list. Son of a Sinner is great too, but I went with Dead Man Walking because that's the one I think really kind of kicked it off for him. I think that's what got him on a Shinedown tour. It's that track. But number 1 for me, and I listened to this song right after I bought my new car. I was out in South Carolina, bought my new car. I listened to this several times on my way back from South Carolina. And it's a song called Riptide from Beartooth. I love Beartooth. I've seen them at Rocklahoma too. Thanks, Mark. Beartooth is amazing. They're also a band too that lead singer's now in recovery, so it makes me want to support them even more, support his efforts. But Riptide is kind of what that's about. And it's not just about addiction, but it's about the troubles of life. It's like there's always something out there trying to pull you under. You know, and you go back and think about the past, and that's one of the things that I'll tell you. Like I've heard somebody say this one time in a speaker meeting. They said there's nothing more expensive than a life of regret. And we're all going to have some of that. I talked to that recently about my wife. You know, it's like we have all these things, and I wish we'd have done. I wish we'd have done this, or I wish we hadn't done this, or I wish we'd have committed more time to this. And it's like, it's good to discuss that, but you can't live in that moment. You got to live in the now. You got to have an eye on the future, a back on the past, but you got to focus on the now. And that's kind of what Riptide's about. It's like, you know what, I'm not going to let, you know, the pain of my past kind of slow me down. And listen, I've been sober 31 years, man, and I'm still dealing with those character defects that led me astray in the first place. And so it is a process. I have all these people sometimes will, Steve, you seem like you got it all together. I can assure you that I don't. There are some days that I feel really good. There are other days that I'm just kind of just trying to make it through the day. But Riptide is one of those songs that kind of empowers me. When I put that song on, I feel really good about life. Sometimes I kind of grit my teeth to it, you know, because I love that breakdown when it gets all heavy. But that's my number 1 rock song of 2022, Riptide from the great band Beartooth. Those guys are a little bit different too. You go back and listen to them. Like the In Between is amazing. That's the song that kind of hooked me into Beartooth was the In Between. Love that song. In Between is the name of the title track. But and the song Hated, I love that one too. You know, who knew you'd be hated for being who you are? Yeah, that's the story of my life. But I'm going to keep being me. And those that love me will love me, and those that don't, well, that's their problem. But I'd be interested to know if I missed anybody. I'm soliciting some feedback here. As you guys listen to this list or listen to this show, if I miss somebody, hit me up. Because you know, my wife is like an Octane listener all the time. Like that's all she does. Like when she's in her car, unless she's talking to me, she's listening to Octane. A lot of times I'll download albums and I enjoy the ride of an album. And then plus, as far as I travel, sometimes Octane repeats like 2 and 3 times in the day, so I don't like to hear all that repetitive stuff. But if I missed a great rock band or something new that you love, hit me up. I'm always happy to learn about a new band. I wish I had a new favorite band. You know what I'm saying? It's like, when you first hear this great band and you want to like just envelop everything they have. It's like you hear one great album and you're like, oh my gosh, you get the next one. Then your next thing you know, you're buying merch and you're getting tickets to a show and you get so excited and all of a sudden they become like the soundtrack of your life. I'm looking for that band. I am. I'm looking for that band. I've got some that have been great, but I need somebody from this new generation to kind of captivate me and capture my interest. So maybe you know somebody. The Architects are cool. A lot of people will mention them. The Architects are good. They're very different. Again, that's kind of that industrialized sound. But I think we are on the verge of something new in rock music. I think things have kind of gotten watered down in many respects. There's not a lot of true headliners. I mean, Shinedown, of course, is one. Korn is one. There are a few bands out there that are still packing out arenas. But a lot of the bands in the modern rock scene are playing clubs because they can't command a big ticket somewhere. And so we're ripe for something fresh. Maybe you know about that band before I do. So hit me up. Let me know. Hit up Roy at Dogmatic67 on Twitter with your ideas for the top 10 list. We'll be happy to do them. It may take us a while, but we'll get to it eventually. And you can find our great list on Spotify also at Dogmatic67. That's DAWGMATIC 67. All right. Next segment of the show brought to you by Campus Bookmart. You know Campus Bookmart well. If you don't, it's your own fault. They are a Starkvillian institution, been in business here for years. Go check them out. Next time you're in town, go see their smiling faces. If you can't make it to town, let me encourage you to visit them on the World Wide Web at campusbookmart.net. Use promo code BSR, which gets you free shipping on all orders over $75. Any order less than $75, absolutely incomplete. Chances are you didn't get everything on your list. Maybe you didn't get that Mike Leach pullover that's so popular. Everybody was looking for that. Maybe your significant other couldn't find it. Take care of it yourself. Treat yourself to something new. Buy that in time to go to the bowl game. Be sure and visit them today. You'll be glad you did. Campus Bookmart, the most extensive selection of Mississippi State merchandise in the known universe. All right, we continue our year in review here. We went into the winter sports season, the fall sports season, with a chance to do something we've never done before. We do make some history on the soccer side of things. We end the year with a 12-6-4 record, 4-4-2 in the conference, despite battling through some injuries. My goodness. Pretty good start. We're undefeated for a long time. We take care of Sanford in an exhibition, Southeastern in an exhibition, outscored them by combined 6-0. We go to Miami, Florida, and we get a 0-0 tie there. We beat Florida International while we're down there, take care of Lipscomb, beat Minnesota, tie South Alabama, beat Louisiana Tech, beat Southern Miss, beat Presbyterian 4-0. We go into SEC play undefeated. Pretty excited about our team. And a lot of people thought we'd take a step back this year, but we're 6-0-2 at the end of non-conference play. We beat Arkansas 2-0, a very good Arkansas team. We beat Texas A&M in College Station 1-0. Beat LSU 3-2. We tie Missouri in Columbia. We finally lose our first game in Starkville to South Carolina 1-0. Lose again that Sunday on the road at Auburn 1-0. But again, we feel like we're a competitive team. We win the Magnolia Cup by beating Ole Miss 1-0 in Oxford. We go to Alabama. We get shelled there 4-1. Then lose at Vandy 2-1. We tie Georgia. And so we end the regular season in pretty good condition here. We're headed to the beach again, as they say. But the Bulldogs are 10-4. And then, of course, 4-4-2 in conference. But you start thinking we're 10-4-4. But you're thinking, okay, we got a chance to get in the postseason. We beat A&M in overtime 2-1. That clinched a spot in the NCAA tournament for us. We lose to Alabama 2-0, a very hard-fought game. But no shame in the loss there. We make the tournament, and for the first time in school history, we beat New Mexico State to win our first ever NCAA tournament game in the history of Bulldog soccer. And we played Memphis in Fayetteville, a neutral site game. We get beat 4-0 there. The train ends there. It'd been incredible if we could have won that game. Memphis, of course, upset, I think it was 2-seed St. Louis to advance. But a big year for us. A big year, and you begin to think about, what's next for women's soccer at State. Maybe this is a sport that's kind of flown under the radar, and this is a sport, too, that I think benefits from us like fully funding all scholarship sports. There's a lot of these head counter sports, and then there's partial scholarship sports, and that's kind of where we are with a lot of this. But, I think if you fully fund it, you give teams like Mississippi State a chance to take a step forward. But, again, a lot of people thought this is going to be a rebuilding year for us. Turns out that it wasn't. Did a really good job with transfers. That's an important aspect of it, too. We forget about the portal when it comes to other sports. Okay, volleyball, Julie Doherty's team had a historic year last year. We were hoping to building on that this year. It turns out we don't make the NCAA tournament. We had a chance to be in the postseason in soccer, volleyball, and football for the first time in school history. Volleyball, again, gets off to a tremendous start. We finished the year 15-13, 8-10 in the conference. But we take care of Louisiana in an exhibition, beat Milwaukee, beat Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana, take care of Lipscomb, beat Oklahoma, beat Ball State, beat Kennesaw State, and finally lose a match to Houston September the 9th, 3 sets to 2. We bounce back, take care of South Alabama. We lose to Bowling Green and Ann Arbor, and then lose to Michigan. So that closes out the non-conference portion of the schedule. But again, we felt pretty good here. We're 7-3 overall. Michigan was 8-1, so there's no loss. 7-3 non-conference, not bad. And then we beat Georgia, lose to Auburn, beat Arkansas, and then lose to Arkansas. We beat A&M back-to-back matches, and then we lose back-to-back to Florida. We lose to South Carolina, lose to Ole Miss, and that's when we really kind of got behind the eight ball there. We split with LSU. We take down Alabama, lose to number 19 Kentucky, and then go on the road and lose to Tennessee, back-to-back matches there on Saturday and Sunday. And then we close out the regular season sweeping Missouri, but we don't make the postseason. So a good season, but any season that doesn't end in the postseason, regardless of sport, cannot be considered a great season. But a winning year, 15-13 and 8-10 in the conference. But again, losing to Ole Miss was kind of a harbinger of things to come. But a good year on the volleyball side of things. And while we're looking at some of these, smaller sports, let's throw out a shout out to the men's golf team, right? Men's golf team doing their part, try to take care of things for us. Maybe didn't go the way we wanted to. Had a lot of weather issues, but match play, kind of an adventure for us. Got out there and played competitively a lot this year. But we make the SEC tournament and then advance to the New Haven Regional. And then that's where the ride ends for us. But, again, postseason, good year for those gentlemen out there. On the men's tennis side of things, again, it's just one of these things you look at and you kind of begin to wonder, what's the direction of things. But, we have had some really good really good men's teams in the past. Won the SEC tournament back-to-back years. But this season ends up 14-13 and then 4-8 in the conference. Not a great year for us. You need that one ace player. Don't know that we necessarily had that this year. But you do find a way. We do get some individuals into the singles championship. So we did have some postseason play, but not what we had hoped for. On the women's side of things, looking at tennis here as we kind of move forward, 12-15 on the year, 2-11 in the conference. That's not going to get it done. I think we all know that, and everybody associated with women's tennis knows the same thing. And so the women's golf team, some pretty cool stuff coming up. I guess we still have some matches left to play there, but when I look at all this stuff, I begin to think, there's so much to keep up with. There's so much to feel good about. There's so much to root for. There's so much for us to be proud of, to be Bulldogs. But this is where I think NIL is important, where you can make a difference. If you have a relative or maybe a neighbor's kid on your team, you could submit a donation to the Bulldog Initiative and earmark it for that sport. Not everything has to go to the quote big three, basketball, baseball, and football. You can contribute money directly to soccer, volleyball, men's, women's golf, whatever you want to do, and ensure that money goes towards those programs. And I would encourage you to do that. I think it's important to kind of understand that there are a lot of those athletes out there that could use a helping hand. And I'm a firm believer, too. The one good thing about name, image, and likeness is you can get somebody to do an advertisement for you. You get something out of the deal, and you can set that up with Charlie. Say, hey, here's what we want to do. Or you can just make a donation. But you can get your business affiliated with the Mississippi State student athlete or an Ole Miss athlete or Southern Miss athlete or whoever you'd like to kind of further your interest. All right, final segment of the show brought to you by our friends at Portico. I love Portico. I've told you guys before, if I was moving to Starkville now, I'd move to Portico. There'd be no question about it. I love that place. And I think you will too. Next time you're in town, go see it for yourself. Turn off 82 on a 12 light, go into campus. Very first right is Pat Station Road. Take the right there. Go through the four-way stop. Portico's right there on your right. Give yourself a self-guided tour. You can start with a 2-bedroom, 2-bath home, go all the way up to a 4-bedroom, 4-bath home, and get anything in between. Great group of builders involved with this project. They're happy to give you a custom build if you require it. You can have some say in the layout of your house. You can pick your lot. If you want a ready-made house, they got those too. Phase 1's completely sold out. Phase 2 under construction. Many of those homes are sold, but there are some available. A lot of people are thinking, Steve, maybe it's not a good time to build. Well, you know what? These folks can take care of that. Wouldn't it be great to get the home exactly the way you want it? A lot of times when you go buy a house, you're kind of making the best of it. Why not get the best made for you by the fine folks at Portico? Make Portico your next move. All right, let's take a quick look back at football. That's what you tuned in for anyway, right? It's a tough year, man. It is in some respects, but you look at the beginning of the year, I think we all said, and we have belabored this point, if we can go 8-4, get the golden egg back, and finish up in a Florida Bowl game, we've done well. That's exactly what we did. We have done well. Have we done as best we could? Probably not. The Kentucky loss still rubs me the wrong way, and the fact that we had the lead after 3 quarters on the road in Baton Rouge and couldn't close out the deal, that's just a burr in the saddle, isn't it? And even though LSU won the West, you look back and think, you know what, that's a game that we let get away from us. But let's take a look at the season in its totality. We destroy Memphis. You remember how wild that was, that game? We had the weather delay. We ended up playing late into the evening. We win the game 49-23. It was never really in doubt. But you win that game and you feel like it was a bit of a revenge game after the way things went down last year. We go to Arizona, win that game 39-17. I remember taking a picture with some fans before the game that thought I was Rob Zombie. He goes, hey, you're Rob, right? And I said, I'm Steve Robertson. Well, let me get your picture anyway. So we did. And I can only begin to imagine that they sobered up and realized they had a picture with a guy that wasn't Rob Zombie. But we win the game 39-17, and it never, outside of that first drive for Arizona, they did absolutely nothing. Zach Arnett's defense did a tremendous job out there. And we win the game 39-17, but it felt worse, and it probably should have been worse. Then, of course, we lose that ball game at LSU 31-16. And again, it sounds so crazy. We had the lead after 3 quarters and ended up losing by 2 scores. And that crowd was absolutely dead. Absolutely dead. And we gift them the ball. After that muff punt, the complexion of that game completely changed. Completely changed. We bounce back, and we have a very crucial stretch here. We needed to win all 3 of these games at home. We do. We blow out Bowling Green 45-14, blow out Texas A&M 42-24, blow out Arkansas 40-17. So 3 consecutive games with 40 points or more scored offensively, and you begin to think, okay, we are trending in the right direction. We already have 5 wins under our belt. We're 5-1, feeling good about life. We beat A&M back-to-back years. We finally avenged that terrible 2 losses to Sam Pittman's Arkansas squad. Those games were not competitive. And yes, I know KJ Jefferson didn't play. I'm well aware of that. Nobody ever makes excuses for other teams that beat us when we have injured players, so we're not going to care about that. It goes down in the record books as a win. And then we go to Kentucky. And this ball game, too, it's just one of those things I look at in hindsight, and I begin to ask myself, why did this happen? It's a 3-3 ball game at the break, and even though we were frustrated, it felt like, you know what, we were forcing them into some crucial mistakes, felt pretty good about life. They go down, kick a field goal to go up 6-3. We immediately answer with a touchdown drive and make it 10-6. And you're thinking, we're going to be okay. We got to get a stop. Well, we don't. They march right down the field and score. We have that huge kickoff return from Tulu that's nullified by a holding penalty. They kind of put us in a bad spot. So we're down 3 at the end of 3 quarters, and you feel like, okay, we're just one drive away from making this a game. We can't get off the field. They go down and score, make it 20-10, and at that point we kind of knew what was going to happen. And it seemed like the game was all but over. And the next thing you know, Emmanuel Forbes steps in front of a pass and returns it for a touchdown. With 8 minutes and 33 seconds to go, we're down 3. We just got to get a stop. And we can't. They run it right down the field, go back up 27-17. And from there, the game was over. We never really could do anything with it. But this was more about our own ineptitude, and we let Kentucky kind of set the tone. And it seems like every time we go up there, we end up playing their game. And their game forces us to, I think, press a little bit. I think we feel like, hey, we got to maximize every drive because we're not going to get very many. This wasn't a good Kentucky team. It's a very average and mediocre team. And I think that's one thing you look at with this group is we should have won the game. We get shelled by Alabama. We finally score on the last play of the game to kind of get that monkey off our back, but it never felt like we were in the game. We kind of competed for a while, but eventually once they got some separation, we couldn't get it done. Auburn, of course, fires Brian Harsin. Cadillac Williams comes in here. We beat them in overtime, 39-33. Woody Mark for the big touchdown late. I don't think we realized at the time what a big win that was because Cadillac had those guys played hard. Georgia gets us 45-19, but it was very much a ball game at the half. That's Xavier Thomas's shining moment as a Bulldog. The big punt return right before the half that makes it a 12-10 ball game. 17-12 ball game. And we think, you know what? If we can just get a stop here, maybe we got a chance. Ultimately, defense wore down. We lose 45-19. Bounce back to beat East Tennessee State. Makes us, 56-7 win there. Gives us 7 wins. And you're thinking, okay, if we can just find a way to win the Egg, that gives us 8 wins, but also gives us the same record as Ole Miss. And there were many people in the media that are very friendly to Ole Miss that had this narrative all year long. They were leaving us behind. I think we all knew that Ole Miss was fool's gold. In many respects, it felt like 2010 MSU, where you kind of get the benefit of playing kind of a cupcake schedule. And you get into the SEC play, and then that's the great equalizer. But State goes up there, doesn't play well on offense, play extremely well on defense. Defense keeps us in the game, and ultimately a defensive play wins the game with Randy Charlton. I got it transferred in here from Central Florida. Staying home, making a big play, batting down that 2-point attempt. If he doesn't, there's a good chance Jonathan Mingo scores and the game goes into overtime, and I don't know if we win in overtime. It didn't matter. We win the ball game. But again, I give Will Riders a lot of credit. That big touchdown pass to Tulu Griffin right before the half really got us back in the ball game because it really felt like if we could ever get out of our own way, we were going to win the game. And, of course, a big fumble from Will Rogers right there at the goal line allowed Ole Miss to stay. They put together a 95-yard drive to kind of set up the drama late. But we win the ball game 24-22, end up tied with those guys in the SEC standings. But, of course, since we won head-to-head, we get the better bowl destination. We'll head to Tampa to play Illinois. And that game's coming up on Monday. That's Monday, January 2nd, if you haven't looked at that. But, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Mike Leach. We've talked a lot about that, but that is one of those things you look at, and it's a historic type moment in many respects, not just for Mississippi State, but for college football. And you begin to think to yourself, where do we go from here? Well, I think we're going to have some changes on the offensive side of the football. I think you'll see some coaching changes there. Probably some Mike Leach disciples won't be retained, and that'll be left up to the new offensive coordinator. I posted an update on what I've heard about the OC search on genespage.com this morning. If you're a subscriber, go by and check it out. If you're not, now's probably a good time to subscribe. You can get the inside information directly from our experts over at genespage.com on the True Maroon board. But I'm a firm believer in Zach Arnett. Like many of you, I think we've made the right hire here. I think he'll do a great job for us. I think that he is a very hard-nosed, blue-collar coach that kind of matches our ideals and our value system. I think he will do exactly what we need him to do. And I think that's a big part of things for every one of us, is we need a coach that matches our ideals. I think you had that in Mike Leach, even though he was very eccentric. This is a guy that was big on accountability. Guy was really big on old school type mentality. He didn't coddle guys. He pushed them to be better. I think Zach Arnett is cut from the same cloth. And Zach Arnett's not going to be for everybody. He's not. Zach Arnett will hold you accountable. I have seen it in practice before. Players that you know and love that didn't have their homework done or didn't get an assignment taking place, they had a mental error, he gets on them. He coaches them. He's a throwback coach. Even though he's a younger guy, he's not from this new generation of coaches that wants to coddle players. So in many respects, he's going to be an acquired taste, but if guys want to be coached, I think Zach Arnett's going to take care of them. Let's take a quick look at our bowl schedule. We talked about this last week, kind of what is to come. And again, the Wednesday show, which will be recorded tomorrow, will be the last show of the year. So let me take a little time here. We'll pick some games here. Kansas and Arkansas, that's going to be a 12:28 game. So that's going to be Wednesday evening. It's a 4:30 kick. I like Arkansas in the game. I know a lot of people are picking Kansas because Arkansas is down some players. I think this is Arkansas team wants to run the football. I think that's what everybody sees. Everybody understands what needs to happen. I think this is a game that'll be won in the trenches. And I think that's where Sam Pittman probably benefits the most from this. KJ Jefferson is back. I think everybody sees that he's the guy that probably needs to carry the football some, but I think with the injuries he's had this year, maybe you're a little more selective, and this Liberty Bowl will be awfully interesting, to say the least. But I'm a KJ Jefferson fan, and I know that he will do what he needs to do. There is no next week. He's got the rest of the offseason to recover. He's going to go out there and do whatever he feels like he needs to do to win this ball game. So I think the SEC finally gets a bowl win. The SEC currently 0-2. Told you guys, I thought Wake would get Mizzou. They did. The game, there really wasn't a lot of drama in the ball game. Wake Forest wins 27-17. I think Arkansas wins the game. I think that's a big part of things. Arkansas will play their brand of football. And I just don't think Kansas has the athletes to go with them. Kansas is 6-6. Remember, that was a big story early in the year. They started out 5-0, and everybody's like, here they go. They win one more game the rest of the year. And many of those games were not competitive. Now, granted, they're playing TCU and Oklahoma and Baylor and Texas Tech and Texas and Kansas State. They pulled an upset over Oklahoma State that ultimately got them bowl eligible. But I think this is a team that's very fortunate to be bowl eligible. I think Arkansas had a disappointing year, but Arkansas is better than their record indicates. So I like them to win the game. Texas Tech and Ole Miss. I would love Texas Tech to win this game. I just don't think that the Red Raiders at 7-5 have the horses on defense. Now, the good thing is they have played well down the stretch. The Red Raiders have won their last 3. They beat Kansas. They went on the road against Matt Campbell at Iowa State, and then they beat Oklahoma 51-48. Huge win for them, but it's been a very much an up and down season. And you look at their losses, outside of that loss to Baylor, and when they played Baylor, Baylor was still playing pretty well. All of their losses, 4 of their 5 losses are to ranked opponents. So it's not like they have that inexplicable loss. Of course, Baylor absolutely shelled them at their place, 45-17. But this is a Texas Tech team that I think will come out and be ready to play. I just don't think when they have to stand up to that Ole Miss running game, I just don't think they can do it. So we're going to take Ole Miss to win, which will make the SEC's bowl record 2-2. Our Gator Bowl will be on the 30th. Notre Dame and South Carolina. I would love South Carolina to win this game, and this is the matchup that the administration wanted. They wanted Notre Dame. They wanted a chance at a helmet sticker win. I just don't think that South Carolina is going to have the horses. I would love for them to win this game. I think it'd be great for Shane Beamer. I just don't think they can. Now, the good news is both of these teams are currently ranked ahead of Mississippi State. So if State wins, and State's ranked 22nd, State's got a chance. That's one more spot closer to the top 20, right? You win, and then one of those teams loses. That clears up some traffic in front of you, and then you just got to leapfrog one team. And again, there'll be some other teams that are ranked ahead of us that'll lose, but I think it gives State a chance for a top 20 finish. So either way, no matter who wins this game, somebody ahead of State's going to drop behind them. I like Notre Dame to win the game, which would make the SEC 2 and 3. All right, Tennessee and Clemson in the Orange Bowl. I think this is the most intriguing matchup of the Access 6 bowl games. I think of the tradition of the playoff games, because this is in the New Year's Six. I think Tennessee will make a game of this, and I'll be honest with you, this is the one that's been so hard for me to pick because I don't know which Tennessee team's going to show up. And I think the fact that they're playing a backup quarterback probably plays into the hands of Clemson. And I know that there's some opt-outs and things like that, but we're going to go with Clemson to win the Orange Bowl. But I think this is going to be a very entertaining game, and I think outside of the playoffs, this may be the most exciting game of the bowl season. Number 6 versus number 7 in Miami. It's incredible. Okay, Alabama and Kansas State. Now, the good thing for Alabama is that Bryce Young and Will Anderson are going to play. There was a lot of discussion that they wouldn't. I think that if Alabama shows up, Alabama wins this game. I think Kansas State wants to line up and run the football, and against that Alabama front, that's going to be tough to do. So we're going to pick Alabama to win here. I don't know that Kansas State has played many quarterbacks like Bryce Young, and I know they played some really good ones in the Big 12, but Bryce Young, we know from experience, is a guy that can extend plays. When you think you've got him, he'll elude the rush, and it's so difficult to defend those Alabama wideouts, even though this isn't a great Alabama wide receiving core. It's difficult when things break down. They're so athletic, they can work back to the quarterback, and Bryce Young can find him. He's got the arm to make you pay. So we're going to pick Alabama to win here. Iowa versus Kentucky, and you got to feel like the people associated with this bowl game kind of feels like they're getting cheated a little bit, right? Wouldn't you agree? I think we all would agree with that. You know, some Music City Bowl up in Nashville. Will Levis nor Chris Rodriguez are going to play. So Kentucky's going to have to depend on some backups here. And Iowa is kind of built like Kentucky. I think Iowa can play Kentucky's game and probably play it as well as Kentucky. Even with Kentucky being full strength, I think Iowa would be a team that would give Kentucky some trouble. But because of the losses of Kentucky, Will Levis, and I my feelings about Will Levis. I think he's completely overrated, and he may prove me wrong in the NFL. I just don't think this is a guy that's going to live up to the hype. So we're going to take Iowa to win the game, and I think it's probably a game that Iowa wins by a couple scores. Ohio State and Georgia. I love this matchup. Not just because of the fact it's traditional. This is New Year's Eve games. Not because it's a traditional powerhouse. I think it's kind of a contradiction in styles in many respects. And yes, I know Ohio State spreads it out. They want the athletic quarterback. But that Georgia run game, when that thing is going well behind that big offensive line, you're not going to beat them. Georgia, the defending national champions, recruiting at a ridiculously high level, and they have a real identity. There's some teams, we always talk about, the best coaches kind of build an offense around their players. Georgia, they go get the players that fit what they want to do. What they want to do is be a blue-collar team and beat you up at the line of scrimmage and make you feel like that maybe football's not for you. I'm picking Georgia to beat Ohio State here and advance to the national championship game. All right, Mississippi State and Illinois. That is an 11 a.m. kick. That'll be a lot of fun. It's January 2nd. We'll be ready for some football by then for sure. We'll have seen a lot of great football. We'll be ready to see our Bulldogs play. And I'll tell you this, outside of the Illinois fans and then a pocket of Ole Miss fans out there, everybody in the country's rooting for Mississippi State. For whatever that's worth. May not mean anything at all. But the Bulldogs will be America's team on January 2nd as everybody tries to push State to a victory to close out the Mike Leach era on a positive note. That leaves us with one final SEC bowl game. That's LSU and Purdue. I know a lot of people are so fired up by Purdue, but they've had a coaching change, and I know they've got some good personnel there. I just don't see them having the juice to take down LSU. And, of course, Purdue with a big commitment, with former Texas quarterback Hudson Card committing to Purdue. Big news for those guys. But the bottom line is this. is that at the end of the day, LSU has SEC speed and Purdue doesn't. And so I like LSU to win the game. And so let's run it back here. Of course, SEC now 0-2 in the league, in bowl season. I like Arkansas to win. I like Ole Miss to win. I like Notre Dame to win. I like Clemson to win. I like Alabama to win. I like Iowa to win. I like Georgia to win. I like Mississippi State to win and LSU to win. And if that happens, the SEC will end up with a winning record in the bowl game. The SEC would end up 6-5 in the bowl game with, of course, the playoffs left to play out. Because you never know, Georgia could win another one. But I said when the matchups came out, I thought we were going to have a difficult bowl season as a league. And I still believe that. And I think a lot of these opt-outs and transfers, and I think it really negatively impacted Missouri in the game. It negatively impacted Florida in the game. And that's something I think we have to get a handle on. And I know we've pushed to get these transfer windows in. But I don't know if there shouldn't be some type of incentive for people to play in the bowl game. And you should say, well, Steve, they shouldn't require that. Well, I mean, the value system of today's young people is different than it was when I was a young person. When I was a young person, the chance to play for Mississippi State was such a huge honor. I wouldn't have needed any further compensation. But that seems to be the case. And all these bowl games and all these people are putting all this money together. And there are a lot of people these days, and you can read it in social media commentary. They say, I don't blame these kids for opting out. These bowls are meaningless. And I guess I'm old school. I don't think any game is meaningless. I know we bill them as such. We play East Tennessee State the week before the Egg Bowl, and you think, oh, that's a meaningless game. Well, try losing that game and see how meaningless it is. So, you'd hate to see him get an injury, and that's the risk of life. But I think there should be a sense of obligation. If these people have paid for your education, they've provided you a platform to showcase your skills and give you a chance to reach the professional level, I think that's a big part of things. I think you owe it to the institution to go play. And listen, I get both sides of this thing. There's been one major injury that impacted a guy's draft stock for playing in a bowl game. But by and large, these guys play in a bowl game and they escape unscathed. I think that's important to understand. And Mississippi State has benefited too from some of these opt-outs. When you look at the state of the situation at Illinois, they lose their best offensive player. I don't think there's any question that that's an issue. They lose their best offensive player, a guy that was 60 yards away from setting the school record. Chase Brown ran for 1,643 yards this year. Could have easily gone over 7. I say easily. I mean, Zach Arnett's defense pretty salty against the run most games. But a guy had a chance to set a school record and elects to opt out. And he is projected as a mid-round draft pick, somewhere between the 3rd and 5th round. But that's a guy that led to Power 5 in rushing that Mississippi State's not going to face. His twin brother, Sidney Brown, first-team Big Ten guy, tied for the national lead in interceptions with 6, also has opted out. And then All-American and Jim Thorpe finalist Devin Witherspoon has opted out. And then there was some talk Quan Martin, another safety, may opt out. He hadn't done it yet. You got to figure if he gets on the plane, he's going to play. I can't imagine him traveling with a team now and then opting out. But those losses are significant. If you had to replace 2 guys with postseason accolades in your secondary against a pass-happy scheme like us, it doesn't play well. In addition to that, you're a team much like Kentucky that wants to dictate the tone and tempo of the game, and then Chase Brown, the key cog in that offensive component, is no longer there. It's a guy that always seems to fall forward. And so now you're going to have to depend on reserve running backs. It's not the same. If they were as good as him, they'd be played. Now, I think he also is a product of the system. Brett Bielema is a guy that wants to line up in these odd formations and play 3 tight ends and create mismatches with your safeties and put the linebackers in conflict. And they do a lot of eye candy to basically get numbers in the box. And then just when you commit that extra safety to the box, next thing you know, you got a tight end kind of running free out there. Now, granted, they don't have anybody quite like Hunter Henry, like he did at Arkansas, it's going to be a unique offense. It's going to be something we haven't seen a lot of. We've had plenty of time to prepare, but they've also had plenty of time to put in wrinkles. And now they're doing it without their top offensive player. And, Illinois, of course, was expected to be a team that was expected to beat Mississippi State. But I think the game could be a pick-em by the time kickoff gets here. I mean, now the spread by most odds makers has flipped. It opened, I guess, at 1.5, and now many odds makers have State now as a 2-point favorite in the game. So that'll be awfully interesting. And let's run through these odds real quick here. Just looking at SEC play, and I think most of the favorites will probably match my picks here. Arkansas now is listed as a 2.5-point favorite. It opened, and it's just crazy how life works here. But, Arkansas now, some books had it at -3 for the Razorbacks. Ole Miss is 3.5-point favorite against Texas Tech. I don't think the game will be that close. I really don't. I think Ole Miss will take care of Texas Tech. I just don't think they're going to have enough beef up front to really compete there. Notre Dame, now a 2.5-point favorite against South Carolina. I don't think that game's going to be that close either. I think Notre Dame will win that game probably by 2 scores. Clemson is favored by 5.5 over Tennessee. I could see that spread probably pour money in on both sides because I think it's probably a game that goes down to the last possession. I just think in the end, Clemson is athletic enough to compete. Iowa now a 2.5-point favorite over Kentucky. I think that'll be a low-scoring game because both teams want to run the football and control the clock. Alabama, 6.5-point favorite over Kansas State. I don't think that game will be close unless Alabama comes out there and just lays an egg. And that could happen. We've seen that happen. You remember Brian Johnson in Utah absolutely destroyed Alabama in the Sugar Bowl one year because Alabama was still frowning and pouting because they didn't make the BCS game. Georgia now a 6.5-point favorite of Ohio State. I think it'll be an entertaining game. I do like Georgia to cover. LSU a 14.5-point favorite against Purdue. That game could get ugly, and I think the line reflects that. But when you run through these things, you begin to kind of realize that there are a lot of teams out here that are going to be playing somewhat shorthanded and also kind of figuring things out. How do we play without these players? And so there will be some communication issues. There'll be some missed assignments. There'll be some busts. That's where I think Mississippi State has an advantage over Illinois because when you're replacing 2 starters in your secondary in a short amount of time, there's a lot of communication that goes along with that, especially when you run as many switch routes as we do. You better make sure you know what you're doing. And when you don't have the benefit of having a full complement of practices over the course of a season, you got to throw all this thing together in a week. And then all of a sudden, Mike Leach was the guy that called formations and things like that. You have no clue what Steve Spurrier's going to do. Absolutely none. And in addition to that, Ryan Walters, the former Illinois DC, is now a coach at Purdue. And so you don't have this familiarity with the scheme and you don't know the play calling the way it's gone in the past. I mean, there's just no telling what they're going to do. They may run a lot more base defense. That secondary at Illinois is absolutely legit. But when you remove 2 big-time players from that group, they get average pretty quick. And I think the thing that makes the Mike Leach air raid offense so difficult to defend is Mike Leach is betting that his 4th and 5th best receiving option is better than your 4th and 5th best defensive back. And now all of a sudden, everybody's moved up 2 spots. So now it's not just your 4th and 5th best defensive back, it's your 6th and 7th best defensive backs. They're going to have to go out there and make plays. And the reason they're 6th and 7th is they're not good as the guys that are ahead of them. And so I think that works well for State. Yes, you lose Ra-Ra, but Ra-Ra disappeared in some big games too. So the reality of it is I think State should win this ball game. I think if State goes out there and plays within themselves and Will Rogers plays within himself, because it's all predicated on Will. It absolutely is. And I hate to put all that on his shoulders, but you saw in the Egg Bowl when Will didn't play well, the game was close. You go look at those A&M games and Arkansas games, when Will plays well, the games are not close. I think this game is going to be similar to those games in the middle of the season. I think Will Rogers will go out there. If we can get through that first quarter without making the major mistake, I just don't think Illinois is going to be able to match up with State. I just don't think they're going to be able to. I know how good this defense is. I know how good this defense has played this year. And granted, I don't think they've played anybody quite like us. And we will preview the ball game in its entirety on our next show. We'll kind of talk about some of the numbers and kind of get inside some things and look at their schedule. And I think that's one of the things that you just begin to think about with this is how does a team match up against the air raid when they don't have a chance to play the air raid? And I don't care how good you are or what you've done. Things change in the postseason. But Illinois currently leads the nation in scoring defense, allowing 12.25 points per game. That's pretty crazy to think about. And number 2 is Georgia. Number 1, Georgia, is allowing 12.77. So they've only allowed 147 points this year. So this is a very stingy defense. But I think it's one of those things, too. You can get them maybe thinking a little bit about what they're missing. Illinois, second in the nation in total defense, allowing just 263 yards per game. It's pretty crazy to think about that. So this is a legit defense, but when you lose your defensive coordinator and then you lose 2 of your top players in the back half of the defense, things change. But I think they'll have our attention. I think the Mike Leach situation provides some added motivation. But we just don't need to go out there and try to score 50 points on the first drive. Let's go out there and try to put some points on the board, because I believe, like, if we go up 14-0 in this ball game, if we get like a 2-score separation, I think Illinois is going to panic a little bit, because what you want to do is get them out of what they're comfortable doing. And that's the thing, too. You get a little separation in the game, and all of a sudden maybe you get into the break with a 10-point lead or a 14-point lead, and they come out in the second half. You get a stop, and all of a sudden they've got to stop being so deliberate with the running game. You got a chance to pull away from them. I just don't think Illinois is going to be able to win a shootout with Mississippi State, and I do believe Mississippi State's going to score. And this is a legit defense. We're going to have to go out there and bring our best effort. But I think with all of the offseason issues and what's happened since the end of the regular season, I think State will be a motivated team. I think Illinois will be a team that is playing somewhat limited personnel-wise on both sides of the football. And again, we'll come back tomorrow morning, and we'll go ahead and do your Wednesday show. We'll preview Illinois. We'll break it down extensively and kind of let you know what we do. We'll do our opponent preview. Don't know if we'll go to full 90 minutes, but we'll go through that tomorrow, and I'll publish that, and we'll probably write the article on Gene's page on Wednesday, but it should be available on your phones and on your podcast apps tomorrow as I'm traveling to Florida. But listen, I love you all very much, and I appreciate all of your contributions to my life. And this is a chance for us to go out here and do some really big things as we prepare to wrap up the Mike Leach era. And I think that Mike Leach, the pirate ship, the national intrigue of this game, I think favors Mississippi State. And I think Mississippi State going into this game, basically with the full complement of the roster, with a couple of exceptions. Dylan Johnson obviously won't play, and he's still deciding what he's going to do. And then in addition, without Ra-Ra, the back shoulder throw, that's kind of his bread and butter. So we'll see how State will attack this group, but I suspect that you're going to see guys like Tulu Griffin have a big game, and I look forward to kind of looking at that on tomorrow. So again, you'll get this show, and then I will record it in the morning before I leave for Florida. And then that'll be it for this year. But until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.
This holiday, whether you're making a Kroger Simple Truth Turkey for 40 or a Murray's Baked Brie for 2, Kroger has fast, fresh delivery and free pickup, so you can make holiday meals that bring you all together to create memories that last. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Free pickup on orders of $35 or more. Restrictions may apply.
Choose from a great selection of digital coupons and use them up to 5 times in one transaction. Check our app for details. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Start a journey, not a fad. Kick off your fitness journey with up to $500 off Peloton Bike, Bike Plus, or Tread packages. Choose the package that will take your training to the next level with accessories like our cycling shoes, heart rate band, non-slip grip dumbbells, and more. Join now and you'll see why 92% of households that start the year with Peloton are still active a year later. All access membership separate. Offer ends January 8th, 2023. Excludes Bike, Bike Plus, and Tread Basics. See additional terms at onepeloton.com.